Okay, so we were just talking about breakups, but what about relationships? I saw a TikTok the other day.
We know a lot about relationships.
And I thought it was super interesting and very, very valid. Do you remember the woman's name? I hate to like not give people a shout out when they say something kind of smart.
No.
All right, let me look it up. Okay, Brene Brown. It's kind of a good name. Brene Brown. Okay. Anyways, seems like a smart lady. She was basically just saying how relationships are not 50-50. And when she said that, I was like, is she trying to make some sort of like a feminist plea? Like I didn't know what her angle was, but what she said was actually very smart. And she was like, listen, there's never going to be a time in your life where the person that you are, like the romantic partner that you are with, you're both able to put in 50-50. And she was like, what I mean by that is we are humans, right? Like we go through shit. Like you could have a bad day at work. You could have a great day at work. And you could get home that night and you might only have 25% to give. You might not be able to put in the 50% that it takes to be a good, loving partner. You might have 25. And when that happens, like your partner needs to be willing and able to put in 75%. And I think she was talking about like her husband and her, and she was like, we've been together for so many years and we know this about each other, and we'll like look at each other sometimes and he'll say, listen, I've got 20. And she goes, all right, I think I can cover the other 80. And I just thought it was cool that she said that, because she was just emphasizing the fact that despite what we might see in, Hollywood and pop culture where people stay together for like a year and it's a whirlwind and then they break up, in the real world where people are, trying to make relationships work for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, like you're going to go through some shit. You're going to suffer loss. You're going to get promoted. You're going to have children maybe. You're going to, lose a job. You're going to lose something that you care about. And during the highs and lows, if you're with one person that whole time, like I think you need to learn how to communicate with what you're able to give the relationship. And it can't always be one-sided. It can't be like always one partner that's only able to put in 30 and the other has to put in 70. But looking at each other and trying to understand, like, can I cover what my partner is missing? She was saying like that's kind of like the key that she's found to make a relationship work, which I thought was super interesting.
I think the able part is a really important aspect of it, because are they willing to and are they able to are two different questions.
True.
I think, are they willing to? Like, yes, they might be willing to, but can they? Are they able to? Because I think some people aren't real, like they're not honest with themselves. Like you have to ask yourself, am I in a place in my life where I can show up for my partner and like be there and be a good partner?
Right.
And obviously, like, we're making the whole argument that, like, every day you can't. But, like, there are literally people in relationships that shouldn't be in relationships.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because they're not in a place in their life
to show up
at all. And they're in this relationship and they're taking and taking and taking, and they're not giving.
It's like a parasitic relationship. Kind of.
Yeah, no, but actually. And so I think, you have to ask yourself, but you also have to like take a step back and evaluate your own relationship and see, like, is your partner in a place to give you what you need? And if they're not, then you need to get out, because you never want to find yourself in a relationship where you are the only one giving and your partner's just there.
That is
and giving the bare minimum.
So valid, because yeah, I think this only works if both partners are willing to understand that you're going to go through seasons in your life and you both have to be willing to step up when the other person needs it. And she even brought up an example and she was like, listen, we're not perfect. So there's going to be some times when I might only have 20 to give and my husband might only have 40 to give. And that brings us to 60. And there's 40% that's missing in our relationship. And when that happens, she's like, we need to sit down and have an honest communication with like, how do we be kind to each other when we are both missing certain percentages that we need to hit 100? Because she's like, it's not always going to hit 100. Like in an ideal world, it does. But there are some times when it's only going to add up to 85. And we need to make sure that we're still being kind and understanding and like loving to each other when it doesn't add up to 100, which again, I think is very mature. But to your point, I think that if you are listening to this and you're like, wow, come to think of it, my partner probably puts in 20% every single day and I'm putting in 80% every single day. And it's not just like he's going through a rough week or a rough month at work, but like it's been 3 months, it's been 6 months, it's been a year, it's been 20 years, and he is putting in 20%, and I am covering, and it's to the point where it's depleting me and hurting me and like causing like me to doubt myself and my ability and like hurt my relationship with myself. Like, I agree with you. I think that's when you need to take a look at the relationship and be like, is this something that's worth pursuing? And on the flip side, if you're the person that is taking a look at your relationship and you're putting in 10%, 20% over a long period of time and you just don't see yourself being willing to put in more, like maybe you need to focus on yourself and maybe you're not able to give to someone what they deserve, or maybe you're with the wrong person and there's a part of you that doesn't want to give more than that, but like you need to do the right thing and cut them loose if that's the case.
I feel like growing up, either myself or friends have heard like, I can't give you what you need right now.
Yes.
And everyone would be like, oh, that's such a cop out. Like they're just saying that because they just don't want to be with me or they don't want to tell me the real reason why. But I feel like you actually need to like listen and respect what that person is saying when they say that, because it really is true sometimes. But I do think though that it's not always a sign that like you guys need to give up on the relationship.
True.
Because sometimes you have to go into survival mode in a relationship. Like it's not always going to be sunshine and roses. Like you're going to have ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys, all that stuff. But sometimes the bare minimum, the bare necessities is necessary to get through it. But that doesn't mean your relationship is necessarily doomed. I think it's very situational. And you have to like take into consideration like, okay, like what is the situation? Like, is my partner going through something traumatic? Like, did they just lose a loved one or lose their job? Or like, what is going on? Like, is this who they are? Or is this just
what they're going through?
A circumstance and like your relationship is just being placed on the back burner because
there's something else going
exactly
on.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a really good differentiator. And I think it's all goes back to communication, like sitting your partner down and talking to them about these things. And it is awkward and it's not always fun. I mean, there's been times that like Michael and I have need to sit down and have conversations about our relationship. We've been together for 9 years where we need to have conversations being like, all right, what we're doing isn't working in this regard. This is working really well. We need to do more of this, less of that. Like we've gone through periods like a few years ago where we had to be like, all right, we need to make sure that we're going to dinner just the two of us sometimes and not always bring like a posse of friends with us, which sounds so silly, but like when you don't spend any alone time together, like that adds up too. I think the communication is huge. But if you are communicating these things and you're still not seeing any changes, then I think that's when it starts to become a bigger issue. And you're right, you don't give up. But I think to your other point though, if you have someone that says something, and we've all been here, right? Says something along the lines of, I just don't know if I can be what you need me to be right now. Or I just don't know if I'm what you need. Or I don't know if I have what it takes to be a good partner. I don't know if this is the right time, or I'm not good with myself. You're right. I think a lot of people hear those lines and we're like, oh, that is a cop out. Like that is such a line. But here's what I would implore people to think. Does it matter? Does it matter if they're being genuine or if it's a cop out? Does it matter if they really just don't like you or if they're really just not sure? Because in the end of the day, for whatever reason, they're unsure about you. And it doesn't matter where that intention comes from. Like I think so many of us, and I can only speak to, women because I've never been a man, but like I think a lot of us are like, well, he said that he wasn't like, he likes me so much, but he just told himself he wouldn't date this year. He just told, like, he made a promise that he would be a better person before getting into a relationship, and you dissect what he's saying and you're like, is it about me? Is he not like me enough? Am I not good enough? Or is it really about him? And should I wait? And like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's telling you the truth or if he's lying, because for whatever reason, he is not willing to do whatever it takes to be with you in this moment. And that could be because he doesn't like you enough, or it could be because of something going on with him. But regardless, like, that is rejection. And instead of dissecting like what it means, like I think it's important to realize, and I saw something about this a few weeks ago and I just thought it was so well said, because this one girl was like, the only non-negotiable that we should have universally is someone being sure about you. like we all have non-negotiables. They're different, right? Like the things that matter to you are things that are different than what matter to me. But she was like, the one thing that everyone should have is the person that they're about to be with should be sure about them. Because I think we've all been in relationships with people that are not sure about us. And that is the worst feeling in the world. I've seen people marry people that were not sure about them, and that does not end well. So you need to make sure that the person you're with is sure about you. And if they're not, take that as a blessing to move on if you hear that like sooner rather than later, because you're always going to be too much or not enough for someone else. And it's better to figure that out and be like, I'm going to cut ties and lose them rather than lose yourself trying to win them over, because it's never going to happen.
Yes. And I think in that situation, if, you know, you're kind of being rejected by someone and they might be breaking up with you, I think if you don't have the self-love and self-respect for yourself, and I feel like I've definitely done this in the past in a prior relationship, it's like you are hearing what someone is saying and like they're saying they don't want to be with you, and then you are like
looking for signs.
You're like changing who you are to try to make a situation work that's not working. It's like, okay, well then if this relationship isn't working for you, I will lower my standards to accept a relationship that works for you. Mm-hmm. Like if you can't give me what I need, then okay, like I'm just gonna accept what you'll give me.
Yes, like
I'll take what I can get.
Exactly.
And that was like a point where I was in the lowest of self-esteem, and looking back, it's like, no, that is so sad. Like you deserve the world, and you shouldn't lower your expectations or lower your standards for someone because they can't give you what you want and what you deserve.
Yeah, like absolutely. And think about how that happens, right? Because you might convince yourself, like you might be dating someone and they are so perfect. They have everything going for them, and they have the good job and the good group of friends and the perfect family, and they're so sweet and nice. The one thing that they're missing is they're not 100% sure about you. They're a little on the fence for whatever reason, and maybe they only, want to date you casually, or maybe they only want to see you every now and then, or maybe they're just not sure if they're interested in marriage, even though it's something that you want. And you sacrifice and chip away parts of your soul and like convince yourself that you're okay with that because having a portion of them is better than being alone. But that is such a lie, because think about it. Eventually, the more that you tell yourself that, the more that you try to convince yourself that having a piece of them, like whatever piece they're willing to give you, is the best you're ever going to get, that starts to chip away at your self-esteem, because then psychologically your brain is like, yeah, Shannon, you don't deserve all of someone. You don't deserve someone that loves you more than anything. You don't deserve someone that's willing to compromise for you. You don't deserve someone that's willing to get down on one knee and ask you to be their wife. Like you don't deserve that. And then you start telling yourself that. And it is so much better. Like if you feel like you're not enough for someone else, which you are, by the way, you at least need to be enough for yourself. Like that is the only way that you are ever going to be able to be in a healthy relationship. And that's not something that I think either of us are perfect at yet. I don't think anyone is, but
God, no.
I think it's a working relationship. And I think that when I look at couples that I aspire to be like, they're always people who are good with themselves. Like they're good with what they have going on, that they're ready to go out there and be a great partner and be a good significant other. It's never the people that are like, I need you to fill this void in my life, because that just doesn't work.
I'm literally thinking of, I don't know if you watched or listened to the recent Call Her Daddy episode with Shay Mitchell.
Yeah, I haven't yet.
I highly recommend, like, anyone that's listening to this conversation and is saying like, okay, I needed to hear this, go listen to that podcast episode, because I think we should all, to a degree, because there are some things that Shay Mitchell said that I don't agree with, but she just had this really great like outlook on relationships, and she was like, I'm okay with myself, so like if this relationship doesn't work out, I'll be fine, like I'll be okay, like. And she was like, hypothetically talking, she was saying how like if my partner's gonna cheat on me, they're gonna cheat on me, nothing I say or do is gonna change that, so I'm not gonna worry about it.
Yeah,
I will be okay. And her confidence was just, I was amazed. I was literally like, holy shit, like I want to be Shay Mitchell. Like she is a boss ass bitch.
Yeah.
we should all thrive to be like her to some degree.
Yeah.
So go listen to that episode because
that's so true. Because think about it, what's the real reason that half like of the people that are in these types of situations are scared? It's not because they're scared of losing another person. It's because they're scared of themselves.
Literally.
And a lot of us don't want to deal with whatever shit we have going on in our brains. You know what I mean? So, but sometimes that's literally the best thing you can do. It's just like get right with yourself.